Madison said she needed a break. Just a few days in the mountains with the girls. No phones, no emails, no real life. That's how she put it. She even smiled when she said it, like she was relieved just thinking about it. I didn't argue. In fact, I told her it sounded like a great idea. Maybe some time away would do us both good. We hadn't been fighting exactly, but the air between us had changed. Conversations felt thinner, like they were skimming across the surface of something deeper we didn't want to touch. She packed fast, almost too fast. One minute she was upstairs gathering her things. The next she was lugging a black suitcase down the steps, already zipped shut. I offered to help, but she brushed past me like she was in a rush to beat a clock I couldn't see. "Got it," she said. "Thanks, though." I followed her into the kitchen, where she had her travel papers spread out across the counter. Booking confirmations, receipts, a half-written packing list. I wasn't snooping, just grabbing a glass of water, when something caught my eye, a boarding pass sticking out of a folder. "Flying into Denver?" I asked casually, pretending not to look too hard. "Yeah," she said, still typing something on her phone. "That's the closest airport." I took a closer look. It was a one-way ticket. "No return flight?" I asked. She looked up, just for a second. Her mouth tightened slightly. "I didn't book one yet. I might stay longer with Jen. Depends on how we feel. We might road trip or something." I nodded slowly, but a small pit started forming in my stomach. Madison wasn't a play-it-by-ear kind of person. She was a spreadsheet for weekend groceries type. The kind who booked dinner reservations 3 weeks out and laminated packing checklists. A one-way ticket wasn't her. I didn't push. I just made a mental note. Later, as she was double-checking her bag, she asked if I could grab her charger from her purse. It was buried under a couple receipts, lip gloss, and what looked like a travel-size bottle of cologne. At first I thought maybe I was seeing things. I pulled it out and turned it in my hand. It was men's cologne, something strong and woody. Not new either. The cap had scratches, and the label was slightly worn. This wasn't some gift set she picked up for her dad. This had been used. "What's this?" I asked, holding it out. Her reaction was immediate. Not surprised, but annoyed. Like I'd caught her in the middle of something she didn't want to explain. "Oh my God, seriously?" she said, snatching it from my hand. "That's my coworker Jason's. He left it in my car a couple weeks ago after a client shoot. I told him I'd bring it back when I got a chance." "Why is it in your luggage?" "Because I'm going to see him while I'm out there." "Not like that, he moved to Boulder. We might grab coffee. I'm just returning it." "Jesus, is it really that hard to believe?" Her voice had that tone. That wee *p*nized calm. The one that says I'm not lying, you're being insecure. It wasn't defensive. It was confident. Cold even. And that scared me more than if she'd gotten flustered. I didn't say anything. I didn't accuse her of anything either. I just nodded again and walked into the living room. She followed a few minutes later, asking if I could help zip her duffel bag. Her voice had softened, and she was suddenly sweet again, asking if I'd remember to water the monstera plant in the kitchen. Like nothing had happened. We had dinner together, kind of. I heated up leftovers. She picked at a salad. Her phone buzzed more than once, and each time she flipped it face down before I could see the screen. It wasn't the first time she'd done that lately. I used to joke that she was more attached to that phone than to me. Now the joke didn't feel funny anymore. At around 9:30, she said her ride was here. I assumed it was one of her friends, maybe Lisa or Aaron. I walked out to the porch with her, still in my hoodie and socks, arms crossed against the breeze. A black SUV idled at the curb. She wheeled her suitcase across the lawn, the wheels bumping over the uneven stones. When she reached the car, the window rolled down. That's when I saw him. A man. Maybe early 30s, short dark hair, stubble, sunglasses pushed up on his head. Not one of her girlfriends. My stomach dropped. Before I could say a word, Madison turned around, waving with one hand while the other gripped the handle of her suitcase. "Oh my God," she laughed. "Are we doing this again? You're literally imagining things." She leaned into the window, said something I couldn't hear, And the guy laughed. She looked back at me and rolled her eyes like you're so paranoid, then got into the car. I stood on the porch for a long time after they pulled away, just staring at the space where her taillights had disappeared. The night felt too quiet. Even the crickets seemed to have stopped. I kept thinking about the cologne, the one-way ticket, the SUV with the man behind the wheel. Her laugh not playful but sharp, dismissive. That's when it really started. Not the suspicion that had been creeping in for weeks, maybe months, but the certainty that something was off. Deeply, intentionally off. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be the kind of person who trusted his partner without needing to ask follow-up questions. But the truth was, something in my gut twisted the moment she drove off. I've learned not to ignore that feeling. I went back inside. The house felt colder, even though the thermostat was set to 72. Her glass of wine still sat on the table half-finished. I stared at it for a long time. It looked lonely, forgotten. Like me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, going over every little thing. The new perfume she started wearing. The time she said she was at a work dinner, but came home with smeared lipstick. The sudden urge to hit the gym 4 times a week, always in the evening, always coming home exhausted. The shift in her laughter, less frequent, more distant, and the fact that for the first time in 5 years, she had stopped saying, "I love you" first. I used to tell myself I was overthinking it, that I was just tired, or stressed, or projecting insecurities that weren't real. But that night, as I lay alone in our bed, her pillow untouched beside me, the truth sank in like a stone. Something was happening, and I was finally ready to admit it. You know how people say the mind plays tricks on you? That you'll see what you want to see, or what you're afraid to. I used to believe that. I used to think suspicion came from weakness, that doubting someone you love meant you were broken, insecure, too paranoid to trust. But now I think it's the opposite. Suspicion isn't weakness. It's intuition sharpening its teeth. And mine had been gnawing at me for a while. The night Madison left, I told myself I was overthinking again, that I had let one bottle of cologne and a faceless silhouette in a car send me spiraling. I made excuses. She was under a lot of stress lately. I wasn't being the most emotionally available partner. We hadn't taken a real vacation in over a year. That's what I told myself. That's how I tried to sleep. But once you stop lying to yourself, it gets harder to unsee the cracks. It's like your brain suddenly flips a switch, and everything you tried to explain away starts lining up like pins on a corkboard. The first thing I remembered was the Netflix password. It had stopped working about 3 weeks ago. I'd texted her, asking if she changed it, and she replied vaguely, something about updating the account and too many people using it. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now I was asking myself, why lock me out of something we always shared? Why change the email on the account? Why not tell me? Then came the new bank card. She got it a few months ago. Said it was for managing personal expenses more easily. That it wasn't a big deal. I'd offered to link it to our budgeting app, and she flatly refused. "It's just easier if I handle mine separately," she'd said. "You don't need to stress about what I'm spending on yoga mats and iced coffee." I laughed then. I didn't laugh now. And the makeup. She never wore full makeup to the gym before. But recently, she'd started applying foundation, doing her lashes, wearing lipstick just to go to a spin class. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be that guy who questioned what his partner wore. But when she started working out later and coming home later, sometimes past 9 p.m., I couldn't ignore the patterns anymore. Then I thought about the lingerie. She ordered a set in deep red lace, expensive. The kind of thing I hadn't seen her wear in months, maybe longer. I remember the day the box came. She opened it with a small smile, then quickly tucked it away in the dresser. I made a dumb joke, something like, "Can't wait for the fashion show," and she rolled her eyes. "It's not for you," she said, smiling, but not at me. I thought she was teasing. Turns out she wasn't. And then there were the whispers. Late at night or early in the morning, she'd sometimes go into the kitchen to take calls. Soft voice, low enough that I couldn't make out words. Once, when I stepped into the hallway, I heard the tail end of a laugh, followed by her saying, "No, he's still asleep." I was not asleep. When I entered the room, she hung up immediately. I didn't ask who it was. She didn't offer. That became our quiet game. I wouldn't ask and she wouldn't lie, at least not out loud. The more I looked, the more things started to add up. Little things. She started leaving her phone face down, then switched to keeping it in Do Not Disturb mode. The lock screen no longer previewed messages. One day, she took a call and walked all the way out to the garage. When she came back in, she said it was her cousin asking for salad recipes. Right? Because that's urgent at 10:30 at night. She also stopped touching me. Not in a dramatic way, but in a slow, silent withdrawal. The casual hand on my arm while passing by, the forehead kiss in the morning, the back rubs while I worked late, gone. Int asterisk Macy had thinned out to something brittle. We still had S asterisk X occasionally, but it started to feel scripted. Mechanical, like a box being checked. She was somewhere else. And now, I was finally letting myself see it. One morning, I woke up and saw that her laptop was open on the couch. She must have forgotten to close it before falling asleep. I didn't touch it, I didn't need to. The screen was still on. The tab was open. A shopping site. In the cart, a pair of men's sneakers, size 11. 5. Not my size. I stood there for a full minute, just staring at the screen. Then she stirred in the bedroom. I walked away. That same week, she claimed she had to fly out to Dallas for client work. She packed another small bag, clothes too nice for meetings but too few for 4 days. I didn't say anything. I helped carry her luggage to the car and kissed her on the cheek before she pulled out of the driveway. But inside, I wasn't playing dumb anymore. I started looking through the last few months with fresh eyes. That trip to Palm Springs with Lisa? Lisa had posted stories from Tahoe that weekend. The two didn't overlap. I remembered the new necklace she started wearing, the one she didn't buy for herself, because it still had the tag from a boutique she didn't shop at. The boutique was in Colorado, where her coworker Jason had moved. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't looking for an explosion. I didn't want tears or screaming or the circular gaslighting I knew would follow. I just wanted the truth, clean, cold, and undeniable. But that was the thing. I didn't need proof. Not anymore. I already knew. It was like watching someone erase you in slow motion. Every decision, every detail, every lie was a swipe of the cloth. I remember sitting on the couch one night, flipping through photos on my phone. There was one from last Christmas. Us on the couch, hot chocolate in hand, her wearing the flannel I'd bought her. She was leaning into me, head on my shoulder. I zoomed in on her face. She looked happy. But when I looked closer, I realized I didn't know if that smile had been for me, or if she was already somewhere else in her mind, already in a different story with someone else. That night, I sat in the dark long after midnight, the house silent except for the hum of the fridge. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry. I just felt hollow, like I was walking through the ruins of something I didn't even know had collapsed. All the signs had been there, and I had ignored them, because I wanted to believe in the version of her I fell in love with. The woman who kissed me goodnight even when we were mad. Who texted me thinking about you at random times. Who danced in the kitchen barefoot while waiting for water to boil. That Madison was real once. But now, I didn't know who she was anymore. And I think the scariest part was realizing I wasn't even mad at her. I was mad at myself for not seeing it sooner. It was the second morning of her trip when the proof finally came. I wasn't expecting it, not like that. I wasn't digging, I wasn't snooping. I had already made peace with the truth in my gut. I didn't need confirmation anymore. But it came anyway, like a knife tossed under the door. I was sitting in the kitchen, half-dressed, sipping cold coffee and staring blankly at a spreadsheet on my laptop. Emails were piling up, deadlines looming, but my brain had other priorities. Every time I looked at my phone, I felt a tight knot form in my chest. She hadn't texted since yesterday morning. Just a landed, smiley face with no follow-up. No good night. No miss you. Just that single, chirpy lie. Then my phone buzzed. It was my friend Caleb. someone I hadn't heard from in a while. He worked in PR and had a habit of randomly showing up at cool events I'd only hear about through tagged photos and blurry videos. We hadn't been close lately, not for any reason other than time and life pulling us in different directions. So when I saw his name, I was confused, until I saw the message preview. "Hey, not sure if you want to see this." Figured I'd send it anyway. Attached was a video. No text. Just that. My stomach turned as I tapped it open. It was a short Instagram story. Shaky, chaotic, one of those blurry walkthroughs people post when they're filming a fancy crowd. Caleb must have screen recorded it from someone else's private story. At first, it looked like nothing. A crowd of people at a winery. Fancy glasses. Music in the background. Laughter. People clinking glasses under fairy lights strung across a patio. Then the camera panned to the left and my heart stopped. Madison, wearing a deep green dress I'd never seen before, hair up in a soft twist, drink in hand. Her face was tilted slightly upward, caught in mid-laugh. And standing next to her, no, not just next to her, with her, was the same man I'd seen in that SUV. The one with the short dark hair, the stubble, the sunglasses pushed up on his head. Only this time his arm was around her waist, and hers was around his. They weren't posing. They weren't aware of the camera. This wasn't a frozen, misleading second. This was motion. Real time. They were swaying slightly, like they were slow dancing to a song only they could hear. Then, as the video ended, he leaned in, and she kissed him. Not on the cheek. Not a peck. A full kiss. Familiar. Comfortable. The kind of kiss you give someone you don't have to hide from. I just sat there, holding the phone in my hand, barely breathing. My chest was hot, but my hands were cold. For a second, I thought I might pass out. Not from rage. From stillness. Like my entire body had shut down just to keep me from falling apart. I didn't even realize Caleb had texted again until the vibration startled me. "Sorry, man. Didn't want to blindside you. Just thought you'd want to know." I recognized her right away. I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? "Thanks for confirming that my wife is cheating on me in broad daylight? Thanks for helping me watch my relationship die in 15 seconds of 1080p? I put the phone down. Sat there staring at nothing for a long time. Then I opened the folder on my laptop, the one I'd quietly started months ago, back when things first started to feel off. I hadn't even looked at it in weeks. But now I clicked it open. Inside were **TS. Notes. Booking receipts. A few tagged posts from her friends' stories. The kind that didn't line up with what she'd told me. There were credit card statements showing boutique hotel stays in cities she claimed she'd only passed through. Uber receipts that didn't match the event locations she told me about. None of it had been proof, not on its own. Just threads. Now I had the needle. It hit me then, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a bad decision after too much wine or a moment of weakness. This wasn't something new. It was a relationship. One she had been living, cultivating, protecting. One she'd kept warm while our marriage went cold. And I realized something else. I wasn't angry. Not in the way people imagine you're supposed to be. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I just felt clarity. A kind of sad, surgical precision settling in my chest. She'd already ended the story. She'd just forgotten to tell me I wasn't in it anymore. That night, I didn't call her. I didn't message. I didn't rage scroll through her Instagram or try to triangulate where she was staying. I didn't start a fight I wasn't interested in winning. Instead, I forwarded the video and my folder to someone else. Lauren. My attorney. Lauren had drawn up our refinancing paperwork last year when we restructured the mortgage and built a trust. At the time, I'd insisted we include a few extra clauses, just in case. Half joking, half practical. Madison had rolled her eyes and signed without even reading most of it. Now that move was paying off. Lauren called me within the hour. She was direct and professional. Exactly what I needed. "This is enough," she said, her voice clipped. "We can proceed." "No confrontation," I said. "Not yet. I want her to walk back into a world that already moved on without her." Lauren didn't hesitate. "Then we activate asset separation immediately." She knew the drill. No drama, no threats, just methodical steps. Clean, legal, quiet. I closed the call and sat in the dark, the house feeling strangely peaceful around me. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was calm, purposeful. I wasn't lost. I wasn't spiraling. I had direction. She had made her move. Now it was my turn. The next morning, I called the storage unit company and reserved a private unit under my name. I contacted our building manager and began filing paperwork to remove her from the lease. Our downtown apartment wasn't jointly held. Technically, it belonged to a small LLC I had created for tax purposes. That had always been my backup plan. Now it was the exit door. Every step I took was intentional. Quiet, thought through. No drama, no warning. Just the slow retraction of everything she used to belong to. By day's end, I had frozen the joint accounts, ordered new cards, changed passwords, forwarded her mail to the storage unit, scheduled a locksmith, and then I packed her things. Every item, every coat, every dress, every piece of jewelry I hadn't bought. All of it. I boxed it carefully, not out of kindness, but because I wanted no excuse for her to come back. No claims of missing property. No sentimental footholds left behind. In the final box, I placed an envelope with her name on it. Inside, there was no letter, no goodbye, no dramatic monologue. Just a printed list of the items she no longer had access to. Banking, residence, insurance, streaming services, cloud storage, all of it. She wanted freedom. She wanted a new story. Now she had one, written without me. I took one last look at our apartment. Not because I was sad, but because I wanted to remember the stillness, the moment before the break. Then I turned off the lights, locked the door behind me, and walked out. Not broken, not angry, just done. There's a strange calm that settles in once you stop reacting and start planning. I didn't feel clever. I didn't feel victorious. I felt organized, like my emotions had finally stepped aside and handed the wheel to something colder, something more precise. Grief would come later. Anger too, probably, but not yet. Right now, I needed distance, not just physical but legal, financial, structural. That night, I didn't sleep much, but it wasn't because my mind was racing. It was because it was quiet, focused. I lay in bed with my phone on the nightstand, scrolling through emails from Lauren, rereading clauses I hadn't thought about in over a year. When we refinanced the property, I'd insisted on separation language. Not because I suspected Madison back then, but because I'd seen enough things fall apart around me to know optimism wasn't a strategy. She teased me for being dramatic. "You're planning our divorce before the wedding photos even fade," she joked. She signed anyway. The next morning, Lauren and I spoke again. This time longer. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "You did the right thing by not confronting her," she said. "People destroy evidence when they panic. Silence keeps them sloppy." I asked her what my risks were. She told me the truth, not the comforting version. If you wait, she can drain accounts, move assets, spin a narrative. If you act now, you control the timeline. That sentence stuck with me. Control the timeline. We reviewed everything line by line. The LLC that held the lease. The bank accounts that were technically joint but functionally separate. The investment account she never bothered to learn the password for. The insurance policies. The cloud storage that held 5 years of shared documents. "This only works," Lauren said, "if you stay calm." "I'm calm," I replied, and I was. By noon, I'd sent the authorization email. By 2 p.m., the process had started. The first thing we did was freeze movement. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just quietly. Transaction alerts turned on. Daily limits reduced. Shared access removed. No notifications sent to her phone. No red flags raised. Everything still worked, it just didn't belong to her anymore. I thought that might feel cruel. Didn't. It felt necessary. That afternoon, I walked through the apartment with a notepad in my hand, room by room, writing down what was hers and what wasn't. Not emotionally, legally. Ownership has a way of draining sentiment from things. That sweater she loved? Gift. Her laptop? Purchased on her card. The espresso machine? Mine. The artwork on the wall? Joint, but I'd keep it for now. Easier to sell later. I wasn't erasing her. I was unthreading her. Around 4 p.m. I called the storage unit facility again and upgraded to climate-controlled. I didn't want any accusations later about damaged items. I scheduled movers for the following morning early. Efficient. No drama. Then I called the building manager. I need to update the residency records, I said calmly. One occupant will no longer be residing here. She asked for documentation. I sent it. She asked if I wanted to change access codes. Yes, I said. Immediately. Locks were scheduled for replacement within 48 hours. Security notified. Parking access revoked under her plate number. I could already imagine the look on Madison's face when her key fob stopped working. Confusion first, then irritation, then panic. I didn't smile at the thought. I just noted it. That evening I packed. I didn't rush. I didn't throw things into boxes. I folded. I labeled. I photographed each box's contents for records. It felt surreal. Touching her clothes without her there, handling things she'd worn while lying to me. But the emotion never surged. It hovered, distant, like a storm over another city. In the bottom drawer of her dresser, I found the red lingerie set. Tags still attached. Never meant for me. I didn't pause. I folded it, sealed it in plastic, and placed it in box 7. By midnight, the apartment looked like a hotel room, neutral, stripped, impersonal. Her presence was reduced to cardboard and packing tape. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom for a moment, not remembering nights or arguments or apologies, but logistics. How fast things move once you stop clinging to them. Before bed, Lauren emailed again. Tomorrow morning, we initiate formal separation protocol. No communication from you unless absolutely necessary. I replied with one word. Understood. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The movers arrived at 7:30 a.m. They were professional, quiet, efficient. I handed them the inventory list. They loaded the boxes without questions. I watched from the kitchen as her life disappeared into a truck, one labeled container at a time. When they were done, I locked the door behind them. Then I sat down and waited. Madison texted around noon. Hey babe, landing soon. Can't wait to see you. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I put the phone face down and went back to work. By late afternoon, everything was in place. Accounts separated. Access revoked. Residency terminated. Belongings relocated. Documentation signed. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't accused. I hadn't demanded explanations or closure or apologies. I'd done something much quieter, much more permanent. I'd removed her safety net. Whatever story she'd been telling herself, about control, about options, about having both worlds, was about to collapse under the weight of reality. And for the first time since all of this began, I felt something close to peace. Not because she would suffer, but because I was no longer waiting. I wasn't reacting. I was done preparing. Now I was ready for her return. You don't need raised voices or dramatic fights to end a relationship. Sometimes the cleanest ending is quiet, surgical. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. By the time Madison landed, I had already finished erasing her from every corner of my life. The message she sent, landing soon, can't wait to see you, smiley face, still sat unread on my phone. I didn't reply. There wasn't anything left to say. Everything had already been moved, revoked, reset. That morning, I changed every digital password, email, cloud, shared files, streaming platforms. Not just changed them, but removed her recovery access completely. I took her off the Netflix account, the Spotify family plan, even the Amazon Prime login she used to order skincare products she never told me about. Some people think that's petty. They've never been erased while still watching the person live in their house. She made choices. Now I made mine. I had the smart home app open as I walked through the apartment, unpairing her devices from every corner of the space we used to call ours. Her phone was removed from the Bluetooth speakers. Her Apple ID was disconnected from the living room TV. I revoked shared access to every cloud folder. Then I reset the code to the door. For digits, cold and final. The building manager confirmed in writing that her fob had been deactivated. Her name no longer appeared on the resident registry. The concierge had been instructed not to accept packages for her, not to allow access, not to take messages. She wasn't banned. She was removed, cleanly, legally, with documentation to match. The locks would be changed in the morning, but I didn't plan on being there when it happened. I'd already scheduled a few days at a friend's cabin north of the city. No signal, no distractions, just trees and silence. A temporary pause, not to run, but to clear the smoke before I lit the match. Her belongings had been packed and labeled the day before, stacked neatly in a rented storage unit. Everything had been categorized. Clothing, personal items, sentimental objects, toiletries, tech. Not a single thing had been thrown away or damaged. No drama, no bait for arguments. Inside the final box was an envelope. Her name was written on the front in pen. Just that, nothing else. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper. On it, I had listed every item, account, or asset she no longer had access to. No commentary, no accusations. Just cold, factual bullet points. Joint checking account. Removed. Emergency fund. Frozen. Streaming accounts. Revoked. Lease terminated. Residency status. Removed. Vehicle insurance. Updated. Health coverage. No longer under shared policy. Cloud storage. Access removed. Home devices. Reset. Legal notice. Pending delivery. At the bottom, I added one last line. You said not to bug you. I listened. She was supposed to return Sunday evening. She didn't send any follow-up texts. No flight change notifications. No ETA messages. Just silence. Maybe she thought I was giving her space. Or maybe she thought I didn't know. Either way, the assumption didn't matter anymore. By 6 p.m., I was already packed. I left the apartment spotless. Not for her, but for myself. I didn't want to come back to a mess. I didn't want any trace of what this space used to be. Before I left, I did one final sweep. I passed by the framed photos in the hallway, mostly gone now. Just empty nails in the wall. A small dent where her birthday photo used to hang. The kitchen looked brighter without her teacup collection on the open shelves. The bedroom, stripped of her throw pillows and silk robes, felt wider, like the walls had pulled back, exhaling. I stood in the middle of the living room for a while, just listening. The silence didn't feel empty, felt earned. Then I turned off the lights and locked the door behind me. She returned at 7:14 p.m. I know this because the Ring doorbell caught it. I watched the footage later, after everything else had settled. She was dressed casually. Jeans, a hoodie, sneakers. No luggage, which surprised me. She must have left it in the car. Or maybe she thought she wouldn't need it. Her hair was pulled up in a bun. No makeup, but she still looked put together. She walked up to the door like nothing had changed. Slid her key into the lock. It didn't turn. She tried again, slower. Still didn't work. She stepped back and looked up at the apartment door like it had betrayed her. Then she pulled out her phone, probably to text me. Then she frowned and tried the code on the keypad. Nothing. She tried a second combination. Still nothing. She knocked once, twice. No answer. The camera caught everything. The shift in her posture, the realization spreading across her face. Then she noticed the envelope taped to the door. White, clean, folded. Inside, a formal lease termination notice. Beside it, a building record change form showing the new listed tenant, just me. And next to those, a bright yellow sticky note. For words. You said not to. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. She knocked again, louder this time. But I wasn't there. And the apartment wasn't hers. She pulled out her phone and started pacing. Called someone. Maybe the guy from the winery, maybe one of her friends, maybe no one who would actually pick up. I didn't care. The only thing I saw on the footage was her slowly backing away. No key, no code, no entry, no life waiting for her inside. She stood at the curb for a while, just holding her phone like it might fix everything. But eventually, she got back in the car, the same black SUV, still driven by him, and left. That was the last time I saw her in person. She called that night. Not from her number, of course. That had been blocked. She called from a mutual friend's phone. I let it ring once before I answered, then put the phone on mute. I didn't speak. I just let her voice echo into the silence. Hey, I don't really know what's going on, she said, laughing awkwardly like she was still hoping this was a joke. The locks didn't work, and there was all this paperwork. I think maybe there's been a misunderstanding? There was a pause. You can't just do this. We need to talk. Another pause. Please call me. I just want to understand. The voicemail ended. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened her old shared folder on my cloud drive. The one with our wedding photos, vacation plans, playlists, recipes, shared notes, passwords. I hovered over the top right corner. Then I clicked delete. No warning message. No dramatic sound effect. Just a single notification. Folder deleted. I stood there, staring at the screen for a moment, then closed the laptop. And in that silence, there wasn't regret. There wasn't even relief. There was freedom. She came back Sunday night like nothing had changed. Pulled into the driveway, stepped out with her usual calm, phone in hand. She walked up, typed the code. It didn't work. Tried the key. Nothing. Then she saw the lease termination notice taped to the door. Her name crossed out, replaced with mine. No note except for a single sticky. You said not to bug you. She stood there in silence, suitcase beside her, confusion giving way to panic. She knocked. No answer. The lights were off. Her home, our home, was no longer hers. She wasn't locked out. She was erased. She called late that night, not to fight, just to beg. Said we needed to talk. That I couldn't erase everything without a word. I didn't answer. I sent a PDF, our signed agreement, the clauses on concealment and misconduct. She replied with a blank email. I didn't open it. I deleted it. Then I deleted our last shared folder. Not to hurt her. Not to prove a point. Just to be done.